Okay. All right. Good evening again, everyone. Welcome to the Colorado Republican U.S. Senate debate. We do have a sold-out audience tonight and lots of people listening in on 710 KNUS. So let's go ahead and give our candidates a round of applause for being here, for running against Michael Bennett. I'm Kristi Burton Brown, Chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, and 2022 promises to be a very excellent year for Republicans. Across our state, we are running on the Republican commitment to Colorado. We will prioritize public safety, we will make Colorado affordable again, and we will expand educational choice, recognizing the right of all parents to have a say in their child's education. You can actually read our full commitment to Colorado at commitmenttocolorado.com. It is what our candidates are all running on this year. Tonight, I'm joined by Michael Fields, the president of Advance Colorado Institute, who with me will be moderating this debate. I would also like to thank Colorado Christian University for letting us use their beautiful campus for this event. I'm going to go through a few ground rules and then we will get down to business. The order of candidates that you see on the stage was randomly drawn ahead of time. Each candidate will get 1 minute for opening statements, and then we'll go through a series of 7 one-minute questions, 7 30-second questions, and then 1 minute closing statements. So be ready to listen closely. The answers will roll quickly. Some of the questions were submitted by our audience ahead of time, so thank you for your participation. Candidates, our timekeeper will be sitting right here, Joe Jackson, and when 10 seconds are remaining in your answer, he'll hold up the yellow sign, and when your time is up, you will have a red sign. So please respect your other candidates' time. We want to make sure we have enough time to hear everyone tonight. If you are name-checked in another candidate's answer, you will not be given extra time to respond, but you can use your next opportunity at the mic to say whatever you want. To the audience, when you checked in, you were given a straw poll ballot. We would request that you wait to cast your vote until the end of the debate, where we'll have a box at the table back there where you checked in that you can turn in your ballot. We'll be announcing the results tomorrow. And any candidate is more than welcome to come to our office and watch us count the ballots tomorrow morning before we release the results. We'll also ask that you would please hold your applause until the end of the debate. We want to use the entire hour and a half to let you hear from the candidates. So at the end, we will all join in thanking them for stepping up to run for office. So let's get down to business. I will introduce our candidates. First, we have Gino Campana, Greg Moore, Ron Hanks, Eli Bremer, Deborah Flora, and Peter Yu. Unfortunately, unable to join us tonight because he did have surgery this morning was Joe O'Day. You will see him on your straw ballot as well. So we are going to, as soon as I sit down, we're going to begin with opening statements, and you'll go in the order you're seated with Gino Campana going first. All right, Gino, the floor is yours.
Thank you. America was built by ordinary people doing extraordinary things. People like my father, who immigrated here legally from Naples, Italy, to live out his dream. He inspired me. I married my high school sweetheart. We bootstrapped our own business. We raised 4 amazing children. We built thousands of homes along the Front Range. As I look back and I think of all the things that America has given to us, I can't help but think, I want every American to live their American dream. That's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate, to fight for the American dream. But you see, it's under attack by people like Michael Bennett and Joe Biden. Look what they've done in just 1 year. Crime, inflation, our border, teaching our children to be ashamed of being American. I'm Gino Campana. President Trump had the trust in me to appoint me to his administration. I hope I earn your trust to become your new U.S. Senator. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Moore. I work here, actually, and this is the only time I'll be able to talk anything about campaign matters because we're a 501c3. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for the GOP hosting this. I'm a career academic. I've been in higher education for 30 years. I teach political science and international relations classes here. I'm an evangelical Christian. I live up in Evergreen, I've been in Colorado off and on since I moved out here after college in '87. I did my PhD at DU in politics and international relations. And I've been watching what's going on in this country, and I just thought, you know, I teach politics, I research politics, it's time to get involved in politics because there's too much at stake in our country. I'm worried about the economic problems. There's a lot of people suffering. People are doing drugs and fentanyl. There's more crime. Things are going on because the Democrats' policies are not going well, are they? Donald Trump had things going really well. But now it's not so good. Critical race theory, school choice is important to people. We got to stop critical race theory. We got to give people choice. National security issues are a threat. And I hope that you'll join me as I make a difference. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ron Hanks. My website's hanksforcolorado.com. I invite you to take a look at it. And thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you to CCU for hosting. I'm a 32-year military vet. I joined the Air Force right out of high school, 1984. I retired at the end of 2017. I am now a currently serving state representative representing House District 60. I am fighting right now at this time for our personal liberties. I have bills in the hopper in this legislative session to develop and open up Second Amendment rights to full constitutional carry. No more of these permits, and I'll tell you why we're doing that, why I am doing it. Joe Biden gave 650,000 weapons and 20 million rounds of ammunition to the enemy. The days of gun control in America are over.
Good evening, I'm Eli Bremer. My parents, actually who are here tonight, Duncan and Michelle, they moved here to Colorado when I was 3 years old and bought a small family farm just north of the Air Force Academy. We sponsored cadets, and I grew up just admiring the heck out of them, and I wanted to be like them. So I followed in their footsteps, attended the U.S. Air Force Academy, got commissioned in the Air Force, and served 14 years active duty and reserve. During that time, I also had the opportunity to represent our great nation in the Olympic Games in 2008 in Beijing, China. I had the opportunity to travel the world, and I will tell you something, there is no place like the United States of America. I am unabashedly in love with our country. But I'm worried right now about what Joe Biden and Michael Bennett are doing, and I'm worried that the America that I grew up in, that my parents raised me in, is not going to be the America that your kids, your grandkids, and my 7-year-old son are going to inherit. That's why I'm running for Senate. I'm Eli Bremer, and I look forward to earning your vote.
I'm Deborah Flora, and I have great news. The 14-point swing towards the Republican Party is proof that there is a great awakening happening, not a great awokening. Our fellow citizens realize that the Democratic Party has become the very threat that the Constitution was created to prevent. Having traveled to the Soviet Union, I never imagined that big government socialism would become the playbook of a radicalized Democratic Party with Michael Bennett as the rubber stamp. Whether they are trying to federalize elections, eliminate the filibuster, whether they're trying to force unconstitutional mandates, decriminalize crime, or indoctrinate our children, they are completely out of touch. I have stood with so many of you from the school board to the State House. Now I'm ready to stand for all of us in the U.S. Senate. I am uniquely qualified to reach out to our fellow citizens who are now awake and are the reason for the win in Virginia. This is our time to restore Colorado. That's why I invite you to join me and go to deborahflora.com. Thank you so very much.
Hi, my name is Peter Yu, and I am running for U.S. Senate. And I just want to say how thankful and blessed I am to be here tonight. And the reason why? My family hasn't stopped saying thank you since we came here in 1969. You know, my mom and dad, my 6 brothers and sisters, they came here without speaking a word of English, without a penny to their name. Yet, despite spending most of our early lives in poverty, all 7 children became extremely successful and living the American dream. And I think that's the kind of senator that you need representing you. Someone who understands what you're going through on a daily basis. Someone who knows what it's like to sleep on the floor and work multiple jobs. But at the same point, a senator who also understands what it takes to go from sleeping on the floor to having a successful career. It's also important to make sure you have a senator who understands the issues so that they can provide real solutions. Because guess what? The state of Colorado has close to 154,000 square miles. And we have 64 counties. And every single one of the constituent states deserves to have a representative who understands what they're going through. Thank you very much.
Is this on? Okay. Candidates, thank you for your introductions. We're now going to do a series of 7 questions. You'll each have a minute to answer them. And Greg, we're going to start with you on this and continue on down the line. The point of running for office is to win. Here in Colorado, unaffiliated voters now make up 43% of our electorate. How do you specifically win over these unaffiliated voters? Why are you the Republican Senate nominee who can get it done?
Okay, that's a good question. I think that's the key to the election. The winds are in our favor right now. We have a red wind blowing. I think we can win, but we have to bring the unaffiliated voters back to our side. I will talk about energy policy that's not utopian schemes run by the government that incentivizes local companies and unleashes entrepreneurial activity, a private way to approach that question. I think also we need to be more inclusive. We need to speak to minority voters. We need to make sure they know they're welcome. We did much better in the fall of 2020 with Hispanic voters, but I used to go to a black church in inner city Denver. They were all conservative evangelical Christians, but they did not vote for our party. We're the party of Lincoln. We need to talk to those folks and figure out what they need, how we can help them to come back into the GOP. So I think that's the key is making it a bigger tent, bringing the libertarian folks back in. Conservatism and libertarian values overlap a lot, and so let's work together because otherwise the Democrats are going to run this show for the next 20 years.
The way I see it, got to really lean into this, I guess. The way I see it, we tell the truth. We give them the assessment of what we see the risks in our nation are and who the cause and the culprit of these issues is. In this case, it is the Democrat Party who has let us down as a nation. Joe Biden is a disgrace, and Michael Bennett follows in his footsteps. The people of this state and the people of this nation fully understand now that Biden is incapable of the job. He's an abject failure. The public and the population is coming into our realm here. All we have to do is speak the truth and tell them what we believe. And I hope we have a little bit more time to expand on that in future questions.
Well, it's a great question because Colorado has more unaffiliated voters right now than we have Republicans and Democrats. And you're right, if we're going to win, we're going to have to go after them. My dad was a county commissioner when I was growing up and has a lot of wise statements. One of them was, go pick an agreement with someone. Our values as Republicans and conservatives, they work. And you know what? I think most people in Colorado will find that to be true if we go talk to them. Now, I've had some great experiences working on actually changing policy in areas that Republicans haven't been able to do before. After the Larry Nassar scandal in the Olympics, I helped lead the reforms through the entire United States Congress to protect young girls from being molested by their coaches. Now, you want to know something interesting? Michael Bennett should have led the effort. He's the chairman of the Olympic caucus. One of the best ways we can go after independents is show that we care about their issues and that we have contrast, that we're going to work on the issues that are important to them. And that doesn't mean being moderate, it just means doing our job.
This is the question of this year. Because you see, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity, not just to flip the seat and retake the Senate, to be actually rebrand the Republican Party. You see, our values, our principles are exactly where they should be. But we have an entire group of people that are now looking for solutions. When we have families around this state who are up in the middle of the night wondering, can I heat my home, put gas in my tank, and put protein on my children's plates, that is our opportunity to speak to them. But we have to communicate to them in a way we never have before. As a founder Parents United America, I've been behind this entire grassroots movement where we have seen parents standing up. I don't care if you are a Democrat or a Republican. You're a mom and a dad first. We can let them know that we have the most moral solutions that will lead to the flourishing of them and their families. But we have to finally communicate to them, and we can do that. You know, I am a suburban mom, but I'm also talking to the African immigrant community. Hispanics are split evenly. You know what their number one issue is? Education. The team behind the Young Can Win in Virginia is a part of my team. We're going to use that playbook to take back the seat and take back this country and have a systemic shift going forward. Thank you.
So obviously, without unaffiliated voters, we don't win this election. And so what we need to do is we need to get out of our comfort zone. We need to get out of our safe zones. Because it's easy for me to sit here right now and preach to the choir. You guys all agree with what we're saying. But how long can we do that? Because right now, almost 1.7 million voters in Colorado are unaffiliates. So we need to go outside and actually talk to the people who actually have different views than us. We need to make sure that we create organizations where they have the opportunity to speak with us. Perfect example, I'm doing a traveling town hall. First one right now is coming up on February 23rd at the University of Colorado with the students. We're going to give a chance for all the unaffiliated voters to have a chance to sit there and talk with us so they know what the issues are and where the misconceptions are. Because if you just listen to mainstream media, you're going to believe that there's this narrative going on with the Republican Party, which we all know is not true. We're the ones who care about economic fiscal responsibility. We're the ones that actually cares about equality. We're the ones who actually want to make sure you're safe. And so the best way to bring the unaffiliated voters in is actually go talk to them and get out of our safe zones. Thank you.
Well, the biggest threat to America today in Coloradans as well is the single-party rule and the socialist spending and socialist legislation that's taken place in Washington, D.C. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or you're unaffiliated. When you go to the pump and you see the prices and you see how much it costs to fill up your tank of gas, it hurts. When you have to sit around the table and talk about whether or not you're going to fill up your tank full of gas or buy proteins, it hurts. People like Michael Bennett aren't sitting around the dinner table talking about that. He probably doesn't even fill up his tank with gas. Probably couldn't tell you how much a gallon of milk costs. But it doesn't matter what party you're with. You deal with it. It doesn't matter what party you're with when you hear about the crime in your community, when that ring goes off at your house and you find out that someone's car was stolen out of their driveway in a neighborhood you lived in for 20-some years, something that happened to me. It doesn't matter. As we go around the state, we need to make Michael Bennett and Joe Biden and the liberals in D.C. own what they've done to our country over the last year. And by doing that, we'll win the unaffiliates. They'll be on our team, and they'll show up, and they'll vote.
Thank you. Moving to the budget. Congress and the Senate often fall back on continuing resolutions instead of passing a real workable budget for our nation. How would you overhaul the budget process that has not been significantly reformed since the 1970s? And Ron, we'll start with you.
First thing I would do is I would not vote for any more continuing resolutions. I would not do any more omnibus spending bills. Each department should go back to being examined one at a time. And one more thing, this federal government is completely unresponsive to the people, and in the case of Donald Trump, to the chief executive. Therefore, we should cut the size of the federal government down to 30% of its current size, because it is not responsive. Let's cut it back. It's cutting cancer. It's getting close to the bone. Let's figure out when this government will respond, and when it does, then we'll move forward, one agency at a time. By the way, we could get rid of several agencies. We could get rid of both DOEs, Department of Education, bring it back to the state level, and Department of Energy. Any nuclear mission could go to DOD or another agency. Thank you.
I like this question because there's a couple pieces of it. First of all, we need to get back to fiscal responsibility as Republicans. I'm a traditional Republican that actually believes we should live within our means. And one of the big problems we face is that we're spending too much money. But there's another issue that's going on with the continuing resolutions that I want to bring to a forefront. We're all familiar with what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia. One of the reasons right now that our military is left unprepared is because the continual resolutions are not allowing our military to advance weapon systems like hypersonic weapons. So this is not a victimless crime. We need to go through, as Republicans, recommit ourselves to fiscal conservatism. When we take back the House and the Senate in 2022 and the White House in 2024, I want to be part of a Republican revolution that brings back fiscal responsibility and gets our spending under control.
I'd like to know who here thinks they don't have to live within their budget. Honestly, we've got teenagers and we're teaching them how to use their credit cards. I handle budgets from our home to our business to boards that I've served on that have handled multi-million-dollar budgets. What I would do first and foremost is remind government that it has simply one job. That is to protect the individual liberties of its citizens. The number two thing it is supposed to do is actually make a budget. I would revisit something that's called no budget, no pay. Because if there is not a budget, then there should be no pay going to those who keep kicking the can on down the road. Let's face it, in 1997, we had a balanced budget. I would stand for that also. The debt in 2000 was $5.5 trillion. We are approaching $30 trillion. That is not only wrong, it is immoral. We are passing that on to future generations, expecting them to pay the bill, and we are bankrupting them. I will go and I will teach them once again how to handle the purse strings and how to make a budget and hold them to it.
So our country's government spending is actually the biggest threat to the future of this country. And it's something that has to be addressed immediately. So the thing about this is that there's so many different plans that we can go. Rand Paul had a great plan called basically the 3 cents freeze rule, which basically would freeze our budget for 5 years and reduce spending by 3 cents per dollar for the next 5 years. It would be a great plan, but obviously it wouldn't go through. There's another plan that's outstanding out there that was been on the floor since 2013. It's called the INFORM Act, the Intergenerational Financial Obligation Reform Act. It's one of the best things out there because it requires the Congressional Budget Office, the General Accountability Office, and the Office of Budget Management to create 2 transparent reports. One that shows exactly what our national debt is, what our spending is, and the second one, what is cost going to pay that. And if we show that to the people, a transparent report of what our bills are, and then what your obligation is to pay for it, I guarantee you people wake up and say, no, we're no longer allowing this budget to go the way it is. Thank you.
You know, the national debt is just crushing the American dream. And it's happening because we have people like Michael Bennett in there making decisions representing our state. Our U.S. Senator from Colorado sponsored a bill to eliminate the debt ceiling because he thought it was just too much of a hassle to go and bicker with other legislators about increasing the debt ceiling. I remember when Cory Gardner was talking about the debt ceiling approaching $7 trillion. Now they're spending that in a year. When did we start talking about trillions rather than billions? As a city councilman, I used to have a line of people at Citizen Comment come up to the microphone and talk to me very passionately about the things they thought the government should be doing for them, about the things the government should be paying for them. And I had to sit there and make the hard decisions as a city councilman and decide where was the role of the government and where wasn't the role of the government. Not every problem should be solved by the U.S. government. Sometimes it needs to be solved through churches, philanthropic organizations, or individuals who just want to give. And we need leaders that understand that and go to D.C. and represent those values for us.
The biggest difference between Democrats and Republicans is that Republicans, conservatives, believe in individual initiative. They believe it's our job, you and me, to make this a better place. The Democrats believe in the state. They put all their trust in the state. We need more programs, so you got to fund it with more taxes, and that's the difference. Their way doesn't work. It worked really well the last 4 years. This last year, it's not been so good. So we need to balance our budget. As some others have said, we need to balance our checkbook. We need to pay our bills on time. The government should do the same. We should name and shame the foot draggers in Congress who are delaying the passing of the budget, whichever party they're in. We need fiscal responsibility. I don't believe we should cut the military, because if we don't have security, we don't have prosperity. But we can cut the Department of Education. That's supposed to be a state issue. Education belongs to the states and the parents, not to the federal government. So not dealing with this effectively is a grave threat to our future. We have to get the spending under control and reduce the spending. Thank you.
All right. Eli, we'll start with you on this one. The biggest foreign policy story right now is that Russia has 100,000 troops on the border of Ukraine, who, as you know, is a U.S. ally. What should the U.S. do about this potential conflict between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, sadly, we only have 1 minute for this one because this is a massive problem. Driving up here, I was thinking, if your truck gets into a slide, that's not the time to be thinking of what insurance you should buy. In the same way, when Russia's got 100,000 troops amassed on the border of the Ukraine, the mistakes that the Biden administration made are months old, they're not minutes old. The U.S. should have been arming the Ukrainians much, much earlier. We should have been sending Javelin missiles over there. They just got there this week. This is a major problem, and it was foreseeable. I studied Russian at the Air Force Academy. I have a tremendous amount of experience in the region, and one thing that everybody with that region experience will tell you is that Russia has expansionist policies. They've always wanted a warm water port, and the only place they can find that is the Ukraine. This was a predictable predicament. This was a failure, just like 9/11. It was a failure of imagination, not a failure of foreign policy. And the Biden administration has absolutely messed up that region right now, and it may have ripple effects for years to come.
When I was in the Soviet Union during the coup, there was someone behind that named Ronald Reagan. And when I would speak to fellow people there, and I'd speak to some of the Soviets, they said the reason why we collapsed is we knew that America meant what it said. We're in Ukraine because Joe Biden absolutely created a debacle in Afghanistan. What happened immediately after that, when we left hundreds of American citizens behind, and today our president just said that he cannot guarantee the safety of Americans in the Ukraine. That is inexcusable. What happened the minute that occurred after Afghanistan was Putin began to move to the Ukraine and China moved to Taiwan. How about we return to some of that Reagan-esque strength and believe in peace through strength? A couple of things we need to do right away. We have to reform our image abroad. We can, by the way, do things such as stand up to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and put the pressure back on them. We also need to stand up to Germany, by the way, who is supposed to be paying their fair share in NATO, and they are benefiting from the pipeline. We can stand strong in many ways, but we have to strengthen our military once again.
Well, according to President Biden, it's just a minor excursion, so it's really not that big a deal, is it? But the thing about Russia is that it's really none of our business what's going on there. We shouldn't be involved. But the thing about this is that we have to make sure there is some world order. But the thing about Russia is that their number one export is oil and gas. And we can control things without having to get into a conflict. We should be putting sanctions on their oil and gas because without oil and gas, you would handicap their number one economic resource. Second, we need to basically control their banking as well. The United States dollar is the world currency. And without the United States backing them and putting sanctions on their banks and being able to handle their digital currency, they would not be able to survive. So I promise you this, you stop Russia's number one source of economic export, which is oil and gas, and you control their funding in regards to their banks, I promise you Russia will take a step back and realize that they don't have the leverage that they think they have. Thank you.
Well, you prevent this by showing strength. But you see, while Trump sent Ukraine bombs, Biden sent some blankets. We're not showing strength. And unfortunately, this is a repercussion of what took place in Afghanistan. It's pretty simple. We need to help arm their defenses. We need to supply them with what they need to defend themselves. We need to sanction them. There's plenty of ways to sanction them, through banking, through commodities, through trade. We need to show Russia that we mean it when we say it. The integrity of our country is on the line. We're on the world stage right now. A few months ago, we might have been talking about, oh gosh, what's going to happen? Is this going to embolden Putin? Is this going to embolden China? Now we are seeing that it is. I can tell you that I don't need to have in writing what Putin's intentions are. He's got 100,000 troops attack ready on the border. He's thinking this is the same administration he dealt with Obama. And he wants to cross that border. We got to stop that with sanctions and helping them out with their defense.
This is a really important question. There's a lot of people who would like to stay out of a fight like this, but if we try to stay out of a fight like this fight's going to come to us for sure. Afghanistan, what happened last summer, that withdrawal was a shame, and it reflects very badly on us, and I think it emboldened China and Russia, and I think Putin is unaccountable politically in his own country. I think he's dangerous for that reason. I think that we should offer U.S. air power. We should tell Putin, if one tank crosses that line, it's going to be destroyed by the United States Air Force. It's still the best Air Force in the world. I think that's what Reagan would have done. Strength deters aggression. Weakness invites aggression. We've seen this movie before, 1938. Go back and look at how we dealt with Hitler. We didn't confront him then. He became more aggressive. Hitler and Putin are not the same, but there are some things we can learn from history, and I think we have to stand up to Putin to deter him. A policy of deterrence is what we need. That's what Reagan would have done, and I think we should remember Reagan. Thank you.
I had the opportunity to serve in Kazakhstan, a former Soviet republic, in 2016, 2017. I had an outstanding Russian translator who was also a historian. We had a lot of conversations about Kazakhstan's neighbor to the north. I will tell you this, Russia is basically a demographically dying nation. They have some very serious problems. This is probably an issue, and I take this from my military intel experience. I think we can avert war through the other states, the Baltic states as an example, lending arms, the Poles lending power, expertise, and weaponry. I think that we can stand them down, and ultimately, I think Russia has to start coming back into the orbit of the West. It will happen. It may be 20 years, but I got the stop button. Lots more to say in less than 60 seconds.
All right. What do you believe is the biggest threat to public safety at home in the U.S. today? And how could you solve it as a senator? Deborah, we'll begin with you.
Thank you. This is one of the issues that our fellow citizens are seeing everywhere. The rising crime is absolutely just, it's unconscionable what is happening. When you realize that the homicide rate around the country went up 30%, but in Denver and the metro area it went up 50%. Carjackings are up 500%. Number one, we have to reframe the dialogue about defending, not defunding accountable policing. That is an inexcusable national conversation that is happening right now. Thank you. The other thing we have to do is realize that at our border right now, we have a humanitarian crisis and a crime crisis. For those who are wanting to come here for good reasons, there are women and children being trafficked and then left under bridges. We need to find a way, by the way, to secure our border and have a good way for people to come. But right now what is happening, we have rolled out the red carpet for fentanyl. It is coming straight up I-25 and straight out I-70. We have to secure our border because it is killing our teenagers. The overdose death rate is out of control. There's much that we can do from Washington and also work with state leaders as well.
I agree with Deborah. The biggest threat to our country right now is the crime rate in our country. Things are out of control right now in regards to our defund the police. Last year, 346 police officers were killed. That's a shame. That's the highest it's been in 20 years, even longer if you don't count 9/11. That's the shame that's going on with our country. Last couple nights ago, 2 police officers were killed in New York. This is what's going on because we defund our police. And on top of that, we have a legal system right now where we are letting people off on their own recognizance. We are letting cash bails being completely disregarded. And as a result, there is no consequence for committing a crime. And so this is the biggest threat to our country right now. It is scary to go outside. As Deborah said, carjackings are up 500%. In a dozen cities right now, the murder rate is at an all-time record high. It is terrifying to go outside. And we need to make sure that we get law and order in place, because without proper law and order, our streets, our productivity can't exist without true law and order. Thank you very much.
Listen, people move to our country because of our law and order. They move here because it is safe. They move here because they can raise a family here in safety. We're at a 25-year high. This experiment that they decided to have in defunding the police didn't work out all that well. And then you add on top of it these rogue DAs that if they arrest them, they bring them in, they won't charge them. They won't even bring them to court. What did we think was going to happen? I see scenes of the smash and grab where they go and smash and grab at a Home Depot, take hammers and sledgehammers and crowbars, steal things from there that are less than $1,000 so they won't be charged. Then they go to another store and they use those tools to break into those stores to steal other items that are less than $1,000 because they know they're not going to be charged. They get arrested and they're gone. They're out of jail, back out on the street. Same thing's happening on our border. If you look at how many people crossed our border illegally that were captured on our border in December, the numbers they finally released them, they're trying to hide them, it was 3 times. It was the last 3 Decembers combined. This December exceeded that. Many of those were coming back the same day. Thank you.
I think the biggest threat to our country here today is a lack of respect for our history, our Constitution, for the rule of law, for police, for authority in general. There's an ignorance, I find. I teach American politics, and my students, even at a great institution like this, come in not being all that well prepared, not really understanding the importance of originalism and a traditional view of our Constitution. So I think education is really key. That gets back to school choice. It gets back to making sure the federal government or others are not pushing their political agendas in our schools, giving parents more control over their children's education. It also is about law enforcement and about not letting criminals out too soon. And so we really need to, our country's in danger if we don't address this issue, because it's about what America's really about. And I'm worried about what I hear from people on the street and from the media who don't really understand our own history. Thank you.
Well, I think the first thing we can do is resecure our borders. I went to the border in 2018. I went there again in 2021 to see what kind of progress we had made in the building of the wall. I was impressed with it. I was disappointed to see that all of that progress stopped, and they stopped the return to Mexico policy. They're letting these immigrants in without really any kind of due processing that we ought to be demanding. The other thing I think is we do have to restore law and order, and you can do that by pushing back against this defunding of the police but a lot of this is at the local level, and this is where people need to get involved in electing DAs that are willing to fight the battle here. If we get the George Soros funded DAs like we have had in this state, we have a problem, and so we have to elect.
A couple months ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with Senator Tom Cotton, and he said, Eli, I think this upcoming election is going to be fought on culture. And it sort of surprised me at the time, but in the months since, I've seen the wisdom of that, and I think back to my time in business and time in sports and how powerful culture is. And I think in America right now, we have a culture that's wrong. We have a lawlessness. We need to get back to being a culture of law and order. We need to respect our law enforcement officers. This is something that's personal to me. On my truck that's up here tonight, on the back left side, you'll see a sticker. It honors Deputy Micah Flick. Deputy Flick was killed in the line of duty 4 years ago next week. I've had it on the vehicle ever since. We need to teach our kids to respect the law, and that needs to ripple through our policies. We need to respect the Supreme Court and not pack the court. This is a major issue, it's a cultural issue, and it's one we need to fight at every single turn.
All right, this question, we'll start with Peter. What changes, if any, should the U.S. make to our country's immigration policies?
So this is a huge problem for our country. I mean, just in the last quarter alone, over 500,000 immigrants came across our border. And last year there was over 2 million. So we're in a situation where our country is being threatened, not because of people coming over, because of drugs, because of human trafficking. It's actually heartbreaking. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure we shore up our immigration courts. We need to make sure that we hire as many immigration judges as possible so that we can actually get a trial done in a timely manner, as opposed to waiting 6 months a year and then releasing people into our country. These people who do come across the border, if they are going to be applying for asylum, we need to get that court done, that case done as soon as possible so that we can have a realization if they can or they cannot stay in our country. And I believe, and I trust me this, if people know that they're just going to be sent back home if they don't qualify for asylum, I promise you, the amount of people coming across that border will be stopped immediately. Thank you.
Frankly, I'd answer this question with what policy? I don't think this administration has a policy. We have plenty of laws. We just need to enforce them. We need to secure the border. President Trump had it right. Secure the border, have people wait in their country until their paperwork has been completed, and then come to our country. And you should come to our country because you want to be in this country, because you believe in the foundational principles of this country, and you want to live the American dream. Look, I'm first generation in this country. My parents immigrated here. My mother and father are here tonight. I remember the day my mother came home getting her citizenship paper. I remember how excited she was over that. Those are the people we want to come across our border. But frankly, it's a slap in the face when we allow just anybody come across the border anytime they want. I say we start with enforcing what we have for laws on the books. And we make sure that people who come over here, want to be an American, want to contribute to the American way that we want to live.
Immigration is a good thing. I think everybody in this room, your relatives came here at some point as immigrants. Immigrants have been a blessing to our country, and they still are to this day. Immigrants are not the problem. The problem is law breaking and lawlessness. And the policy we have at the border right now is a complete and unmitigated disaster. And President Trump was building a wall, and I think we should continue that wall. I think we should finish the job. I think the people who live along the wall actually mostly are in support of that because it's helped their situation a lot. The rule of law is the real issue. We had an interesting discussion about this in a political science class here at CCU. A Mexican-American student raised his hand. He said, I'm a Republican, I voted for Donald Trump. I hate the daydreamer policy, what Barack Obama was doing. My family followed the rules. We came here legally. We did everything we have. We're immigrants and we're U.S. citizens and we're proud of it, and we're against the Democrats' policies. So we have a lot of potential to attract voters like him, and I think that's where we should.
Mike, one more time with the question, please, if you'd read it.
What changes, if any, should the U.S. make to our country's immigration policies?
Okay. Thank you for that. I had a little trouble hearing you. We have to, first off, make the case that we, as Americans, are all in favor of legal immigration. I think we have to then make a very distinct difference and laws between what is legal and what is illegal. I mean, we cannot let people inside this country and then ask them to come back for a hearing. I mean, there's a process where we have let people come in and then they disappear. What about all those people that applied in foreign countries and waited and did the appropriate thing? We are disrespecting them, and we are disrespecting the process, and we are causing ourselves grave harm as these people infiltrate and spread.
This one's really simple at face value. I call it the 3x3 plan. 3 words each. Build the wall, remain in Mexico, enforce the law. Bam, solved our immigration problem, right? Now, I'm the opposite of anti-immigrant. I love seeing great people come to America. That's how America has gotten strong. And you know what? Liberals think that this is going to be a voting bloc for them. I'll tell you, it's not. I actually just noticed in the back here, Gennady Sokolovas, emigrated from Lithuania, longtime friend and coach of mine. You want to see someone that's opposed to socialism? That's your man. He's lived through it. There we go. These are great people that we want in our country, but we gotta get our hands around it first. So again, 3 by 3, we'll keep it real simple. Build the wall, remain in Mexico, enforce the law, and then let's let in some great immigrants that'll help build our nation.
This is one of the largest national security issues we have right now. There was an article this week where a former Border Patrol chief said that the level of terrorist watch criminals that they stopped at our border is at an all-time high. Those are just the ones that they stopped. Who else is coming over? We know that sex trafficking is proliferating. Fentanyl is pouring over our border. It is damaging everyone in our families, on our streets, wherever we are. The number one thing we have to do is secure our border. It is like a hemorrhage that we have to stop. We have to stop it right away because men, women, and children are being used and abused and left because of a man-made, or shall I say, president-made crisis. And then we need to enact a humane policy. We do need people to come here to work. There are people all over Colorado that rely on those who want to come and work and support their families and then return legally. We can have a red card program that maintains the dignity of individuals, the security of our nation, and returns us to a nation of law.
Each one of you is running for U.S. Senate to beat Michael Bennett. Every one of you would be a better representative for Colorado than Michael Bennett. Please define for us, what is Michael Bennett's #1 failure, and how would you correct it as a senator? Gino, the question is yours.
Okay, first of all, I want to go back to something I heard a few minutes ago, and I want to just offer some clarity. The Republican Party that I belong to is not questioning whether or not we want legal immigrants in our country. I will not support that as a Republican. I do not believe that our Republican Party is even questioning that. We are supporting legal immigration. Now, your question was about Michael Bennett and the worst thing he's done for us. Frankly, he doesn't represent us. I've been saying this on the campaign trail the entire time. He's the most accidental senator that has ever existed, and he gave that name to himself. Michael Bennett was handpicked by the liberal bureaucrats in D.C. to represent the liberal bureaucrats of D.C., and that's what he's done. He's fulfilled his obligations to them. It's obvious he's not representing us. How could he possibly represent us when he votes in line with Joe Biden 100% of the time and Bernie Sanders 96% of the time?
Michael Bennett has been there for 2 terms, and he's passed one piece of legislation. Look at Cory Gardner was there for 1 term, and he did 5 or 6 times as much work as Michael Bennett did. Michael Bennett's a nice enough guy, but we need somebody who's going to take action. The other thing is he's a tax and spend liberal. I mean, and we see where that takes us. That takes us down the wrong road. And the Democrats increasingly are closet socialists. Some of them are out of the closet, like Bernie and AOC and some of those folks. But we're going down that road. The role of the state is expanding all the time, and Michael Bennett is with that movement. He votes 100% with Joe Biden, as we've discussed, and that's just not what our nation needs right now. So we need to replace him. We need to send him into retirement and take one of the people up here needs to go to Washington in his place. Thank you.
Michael Bennett has done nothing to restore American energy independence. Michael Bennett has done nothing to resecure our borders. Michael Bennett has done nothing to restore manufacturing dominance in the United States of America. Michael Bennett has done nothing to resecure our supply chain that is dealing with issues coming in from China, which goes back to our manufacturing that should be done here in this state. Michael Bennett has done nothing to reestablish traditional education in Colorado. Michael Bennett has done nothing but destroy family businesses by allowing and voting along with Biden, going along with his plans for mandates and these vaccines. It has been a disgrace. Michael Bennett has done nothing to restore Colorado or resecure America. Case closed.
Hey, Greg, with all due respect, I don't think I want to see Michael Bennett passing any more legislation. In June, I got on a flight to Washington, D.C. I wound up on the same flight as Michael Bennett. About halfway through my flight, I realized that there was someone standing in the aisleway next to me. And I glanced up and I realized it was Senator Bennett. And I did what any Republican would do. I muted my Netflix and I started to listen to what was going on. He was talking to the person right across the aisle from me. And he said, "You need to get in line and support the Biden agenda." And this gentleman said, "Michael, I'm worried about what's happening. I'm worried about inflation, and my constituents are terrified that the Biden agenda is bringing this about." This conversation went on for 10 minutes. When I landed, I looked it up and realized I was sitting next to John Tester from Montana. And I realized that day that Michael Bennett is not the senator from Colorado. He's the senator from Washington, D.C., who marches in lockstep with the Democrats. The first thing I would do is I'll vote for a Republican to be the leader of the Senate so we can block everything that he's doing.
Michael Bennett is indicative of one of the biggest problems we have in government today. He is a career politician. He's a third-generation career politician. His grandfather was with FDR. His dad was with Clinton. He grew up in Washington, D.C., went to St. Albany, the top prep school, most elite, and met his buddy Hickenlooper at Wesleyan. So when he came here to Colorado and was appointed to the Senate and is the luckiest, most accidental senator in history, he went home to serve, which is D.C. It's time to send him home permanently, which is Washington, D.C., and not let him come back to Colorado. When you realize that Pelosi and Biden have a combined 70 years in Washington, D.C., it is time to stop this because our founding fathers wanted representational government. I've signed a term limit pledge. My commitment, and yes, I think everyone should. My commitment is I will represent you. I will come back. I will do 2 terms, and I will be happy to come home, which is Colorado for me, not Washington, D.C.
You know, I think the biggest problem with Michael Bennett is his visibility. Nobody even knows who he is. I've been traveling the state, and 75% of the time people go, "Who are you going to be running against?" I go, "Michael Bennett." "Who's that?" State of Colorado, how do you not even, he ran for president. How do you not know who Michael Bennett is? And that's just who he is. Because Michael Bennett only cares about the I-25 corridor. He doesn't care about every city in this state. He doesn't care about what's going on in Sterling, Grand Junction, Durango, Trinidad. That's the problem with him. I was in Morgan County doing a candidate night, and Michael Bennett is on the agriculture board. They can't get a hold of him. That's the kind of representation you have from Michael Bennett. And that's the biggest problem we have with him. He is the typical politician who doesn't show up, doesn't do anything, and basically collects his paycheck. And that's the sad part about what politicians are, and that's why we do need change. And that's my goal, to make sure that when I represent you, every single one of you will have personal attention to make sure that you are showing that you are what matters. Thank you.
Greg, this one will start with you. Many U.S. senators become known for one signature piece of legislation. If you could have only one signature piece of legislation, what would it be and why?
There's too many things I want to do. I guess the thing that is just in our faces right now is energy issues. And I do China. I've lived in China for 14 years, and I see us moving in this direction towards batteries and green technology. That's all good. But what I worry about, and I'm very aware of, is that China controls 85 to 90% of the resources in the area of those rare earths that we use to make batteries. And I'm really worried about this push from the Democrats to go so fast in that direction. When we're not ready, we don't make the stuff ourselves, and we're going to become beholden to China. That's going to be China will be the new OPEC of rare earths and batteries. And I think we need to slow down and unlock fossil fuels until we're ready to make that big move. So I think energy policy is something that I would really like to push, an energy policy package that opens up exploration for those kinds of minerals here in the United States and in Colorado, to do it in a responsible way that doesn't destroy the beautiful environment we have, to bring down the prices of gas and things.
Balanced budgets. The federal government lies to us when they tell us the inflation rate is 7%. The federal government is lying to us when they tell us that our debt is $30 trillion. I would wager it is twice that. And then when you add unfunded liabilities, it is probably 5 to 6 times that. We have a problem. This government is dishonest. It is auditing itself, sort of like our election integrity here in Colorado. But when they are willing to admit to a $30 trillion debt, and they lie, like they lie about COVID and the vaccines, and what do you think the debt actually is? So we have to balance the budget, and we have to cut the size of government to 30% of its current size.
First, I think we have to get our spending under control. But even when we do, we're going to have a massive amount of debt that's there. The only way to pay that off is to grow our economy and grow our industry. My signature piece of legislation would be actually kind of taking a page out of Senator Tim Scott and Donald Trump. They created an opportunity zone program, which allowed lots of private capital that was laden with capital gains to go into an opportunity zone and grow tax-free. I would do that with an opportunity industry. I would take a couple of strategic industries, for instance, military production, agriculture, and even green technologies, because right now our green technologies are subsidized. And what we need to do is apply free market policies, have private capital go chase after these new technologies, and actually grow our economy. You don't grow your economy through subsidies, you grow it through private capital. That's going to be the only way we get out of it, and I think opportunity industries would absolutely make that work.
I've already talked about a balanced budget amendment. I would love to see a parental rights bill, which is a right we never, ever thought that we would have to stand for. But there's something else that I would like to start a conversation about in Washington, D.C. One of the things that has kept Colorado from becoming California is, for instance, our ballot initiatives are single subject. Let's think about it. You pass a bill in Washington, D.C. It is 1,000 pages long. You get it the night before. Who reads it? 20-somethings who basically give an overview to the people who are voting on it. Transparency will come when we can look at the fact that in the COVID bill, for instance, where less than 10% actually went to COVID, there were line items like family planning in Burma that went to Planned Parenthood. That is inexcusable. We put good people in Washington, D.C. in an unwinnable position where they have to vote on something which is really only 10% of what it says, and then every bit of pork is shoved in there with no transparency for the American people. That is inexcusable. That is a fundamental thing that we need to change. And then we follow it with a balanced budget amendment, and once again, like I said, we definitely have to have a parental rights amendment. I would start with those.
So I think the best thing we could do right now is get people back to work. That's how you achieve the American dream. And right now, we've had over 4 million people leave the workforce since the pandemic started. And that's contributing to our inflation. That's contributing to our debt. And the sooner we can get this resolved, the sooner we get people back to work, the sooner people can achieve the American dream. So I'm proposing a bill that says, let's get people back to work, which is, as a person who has actually hired thousands of people in my life, the one thing I kept hearing nonstop when people turned me down, Pete, I can't take that until my unemployment runs out. I can't take that raise because then I'll lose my other benefits. We need to make sure people understand that if we can get you a one-for-one, so if you are getting food stamps, if you're getting some kind of rental assistance, if you're getting some kind of program, well, if you get a job, just because you make a certain income, well, guess what? You're not going to lose all. It's going to be a balanced budget so that you don't lose all of your benefits until you break even. But then when you break even, the best part about that, you're off government assistance, and at that point, that's when you achieve the American dream. And that's what we need to do, get people back to work. Thank you.
Well, we definitely need legislation to get our energy independence back. That's crazy that we lost that with this administration in 1 year. We definitely need legislation that prevents people from staying at home and getting paid when we're trying to fill jobs that we can't fill. I'm having to pay, we have a restaurant that's one of our businesses, we're paying $25 an hour to get a dishwasher to show up. We shouldn't have that in our country. But you know what? When I was on the city council, I was part of a committee called the Futures Committee. And we had to look out like a 30-year horizon of what our city would need or what would impact our city 30 years out. And as an environmental engineer and an entrepreneur, I really enjoyed that. I'd like to bring that same perspective to the U.S. Senate. And I'd like to figure out legislation that removes barriers and allows us to onshore our manufacturing again. It wasn't that long ago, a year and a half ago, when we couldn't find a Q-tip in our country to test for the virus. We should be able to do that, and our chip manufacturing has to be onshored again as well. 1 minute is fast.
Candidates, you have successfully survived an hour of this debate. We have 30 minutes remaining, and we will now move into a quicker question and answer section. Not quite a lightning round, but you'll each have 30 seconds to answer every question in this section. Ron Hanks, it'll be your turn to begin. The first question: there is a lot of talk about whether Republicans show how much we care often enough. What is one thing you care about that affects people's everyday lives?
I think Republicans have taken a beating on the idea of environmental conservation. I'll tell you what, my dad was in the timber industry, and I put a lot of time in planting saplings, and honest, realistic forest management is actually an environmental, here we are at 10 seconds. But Republicans know managed forest and good environmental policy. We don't get enough credit. We ought to.
I think tilting back into supporting our great military. I'm honored to have actually a few of my friends and classmates from the Air Force Academy. I'm looking over here, Will McDougall, Brent Krull, and Tom Cook all have served in combat. And I think it's great that we've moved on from the Vietnam era. I still feel like we as Republicans can showcase our pride for our troops that have fought. Thank you, Ron, also. And I just feel like this is something that, as Americans, we need to defend our country. It's worth defending. We need to honor our military and show them our support every single day.
I think one of the reasons why CRT has woken up so many of our fellow citizens is it hit them right in the heart. When you send your child to school, and if they have less melanin in their skin, they're told that they are somehow inherently evil, everyone knows that's wrong. If a child has more melanin in their skin and they're told they're inherently a victim, everyone knows that's wrong. We communicate that to our fellow citizens. They understand that is the crux of everything that's happening between collectivism and individualism, between Marxism and freedom. We can communicate to that heart because it's exactly where everyone is realizing and waking up.
So I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but I'm a minority. I know it's hard to tell, but the thing that really matters to me in this country is that as a minority in this country, I'm proud to be an American. And my entire family has been welcomed with this country with welcome arms, open arms. And it breaks my heart that we keep trying to push this narrative on the minority community that we're victims, that we're oppressed, that there's special privileges from other people. That's all a lie. This country treats everyone as long as you're willing to work. And that's what we need to make sure we focus on, that this country is the greatest country we live in. Thank you.
This country has done so many things for me and my family, and I just want every American to be able to live their version of the American dream. And I think once people get to know me, they'll understand that I really love my community. I love my state. I love my nation, my country. I wear the brand. And so while I'm proud of my heritage of being Italian, I'll talk about making pizzas and stuff like that. In my blood is American blood. And that's what will give me the passion to be a great U.S. Senator for you.
I think I'll say two things. I'd say one is babies. On my website, I have a picture of me holding my second son, Caleb, when he was about 2 months old. He's this pink, tiny little thing. We got to protect the unborn. That's one thing. Also, minorities and immigrants. I mean, I just think about these black friends of mine that I used to go to church with, and they just feel sort of left out of a lot of stuff that's going on our side. We're on the right side of history, the right side of the political spectrum, but we got to make sure that minorities and immigrants feel welcome in our parties, in our party and our parties. Thank you.
All right, another 30-second answer here. Which current elected Republican do you most identify with? Start with Eli.
Oh, we're talking about identity politics here. Huh? I just have become infatuated with Ron DeSantis of late. I think he's absolutely amazing. You know, conservatism works, and I love the fact that DeSantis went into a purple state, and he applied conservative values, he followed through on it, and he governed as a conservative, and it worked. And in November, they finally had more Republicans than Democrats. That's got to be our Colorado model. That's who I would model myself after.
It's hard to say who I'd model myself after because it's like, who would you want to be when you grow up? But I will say one of the things I appreciate about the Senate is something that Rand Paul does very well. One of the most powerful aspects of the Senate is the ability to drag things into the light so the American people get to see it. I could not wait to join him and take Fauci on for what he has done, or be on the Armed Services Committee and make someone finally be accountable for hundreds of Americans left behind, $85 billion worth of equipment left behind.
Well, you guys stole a couple of mine already there, so it's going to be a little tough. But, so I'm going to say this. I'm a big fan of Kristi Noem. Because here's a lady that basically let the people govern themselves in her state. During the pandemic, she was able to increase her GDP by 3 times, despite the fact that we were going through a pandemic. She let her people understand it was up to you how you want to live your life. We're not going to have vaccine mandates. We're not going to have mask mandates. We're going to let you live the life you want, and we're going to make sure we have a strong economy so that, guess what? We don't affect your life. That's who I would represent.
I like Senator Cotton. I had the pleasure of sitting down with him and chatting a little bit. I like his no-nonsense, all-business approach to the U.S. Senate. He's an old farm kid, and he takes that farm ethic to the U.S. Senate, and he breaks down these issues to the lowest level of simplicity. So us as Americans, you see him on Fox News every single day, but us as Americans can understand what he believes in, what he's fighting for, and that's the type of U.S. Senator I want to be. I want to be clear, concise, and I want to be somebody that my fellow colleagues and senators can.
I think I would say Ron DeSantis. I like his open policy, his pushback against mandates, his pro-business policies. Florida's a great place to visit. It's funny, all the Democrats from up east, they're all going down there on vacation because it's fun and you don't have to wear masks everywhere. And he's strong on borders, but he's welcoming to immigrants as well. So I think he could be our next president. He has my vote.
I guess I wouldn't emulate anybody. I would go there with the principles that I have and the assessments that I have, and I would look for allies as the situation arises. I mean, Ronald Reagan was a great man, but he was merely a man. I love Maggie Thatcher, but she was merely a woman. I think we have to look into ourselves, look into our spiritual realm, and then find allies for each individual issue. Thank you.
Okay, Deborah, you'll start us off with this question. Which Senate committee would you choose to be appointed to and why?
My father was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and he passed away a little over a year ago and was buried with honors at Fort Logan Cemetery. And while I miss him dearly, when Afghanistan happened, I was so grateful he was not alive to see it because he served in Vietnam. It is time that people are held accountable. I would want to serve on the Armed Services Committee because it is time that we find out how when you are supposed to get out, non-combatants, equipment, and then the military, how did we not do the first two? How did we allow
So the committee I want to be on is the Appropriations Committee. It's important to me to make sure we understand where our money is being spent. That is the reason why our national debt now is at $30 trillion, our unfunded liabilities at $250 trillion, because we are wasting money. We have no accountability where the money's gone. Secret Service just reported that we lost $100 billion out of the COVID spending bill. Why? Because no one's tracking where the money's going. And that's why it's important for me to be on the Appropriations Committee so that we can keep track of every dollar spent, and if it's not necessary, we pull it back.
That's simple for me, Agriculture Committee. I mean, there's 22 members on it with a state like Colorado. We need somebody representing Colorado who understands Colorado. They should understand what a stone fruit is coming off the western slope and how it ends up on their plate, that beautiful Palisade peach and where it comes from and what it takes to put it there. We need that kind of representation. That's the kind of representation we don't have. Michael Bennett goes to the grocery store and thinks it comes out of the box. Doesn't know it grows on a tree.
I would go for the Foreign Relations Committee if I could. That's what I study as an academic. I've got 3 books about that topic and a lot of articles and a lot of experience working in China. The Chinese people are great. Chinese food is great. The Communist Party is a big problem, and it's coming to a neighborhood near you if it hasn't already. If you're using TikTok, it's already here. So be careful and love your country and let's deal with the problems we have and not be shy about that. Thank you.
I have 2 that I think I have expertise that would be useful on. The first would be intelligence. I was, as I mentioned, a 32-year military vet, and most of my time was in military intelligence and foreign policy. The other one is energy. I fracked in North Dakota. I hammered iron up there in the cold, drove trucks up there in the winter, and we have to have energy independence. We have to restore American energy independence once again. Thank you.
Well, it seems like inflation hit this one, so I'll pick 2 as well, if that's okay. I like energy and commerce because this is very important to Colorado. We are an energy producing state. We need to take care of that. The other one that's near and dear to my heart is armed services. In the Trump administration, I was very close with Secretary Heather Wilson, Secretary of the Air Force. Trump did a tremendous job working on deregulating the military and helping rearm them for future conflicts. Folks, we got a long way to go, and that's something I'd be really passionate about, modernizing our military and making sure our men and women are safe.
All right, one of the duties of a senator is to confirm or reject Supreme Court nominees. Describe what kind of Supreme Court justice you would confirm. Peter.
I believe the purpose of the Supreme Court is the Constitution. That's the only role of our government. And when you look at what Madison said in, the Federalist Papers 45, the Constitution says that our federal governments, our roles are limited and defined. And we need to make sure that that's what we follow in regards to who our judges are for the Supreme Court, that they follow the rule of law and then what the Constitution states. That's what I would recommend in regards to a Supreme Court judge. Thank you.
But we never learned how important this task was for our Senate until the Trump administration, when we got 3 new Supreme Court justices. And hopefully we see, I hate to say the fruit of our labor, because I just used the fruit in the last answer, but hopefully we see that coming out of some of the decisions here in the near future. And we get our values represented back in our state and our legislation, and those laws are interpreted correctly, and our Constitution is interpreted correctly. Those Supreme Court justices that were selected are the kind I would select, and I supported.
I think the key is to get an originalist, somebody who believes in the original intent of the founders as expressed in the Constitution. We don't need more living document liberal constitutional interpreters. And I'm so thankful that we got 3 with President Trump. If it should come to pass that we have to choose another one in the next few years, that's the key thing. They have to be an originalist. They can take positions on other things, but if you don't believe in the original intent of the founders, then we're going to lose everything we've worked for 200 years. Thank you.
I agree with Greg on that. I had high regard for Scalia. I have high regard for Clarence Thomas. But what we need to do with our Supreme Court justices is invoke term limits on them of 11 or 13 years. These people who are there and staff has to be term limited as well, or we are going to be in serious trouble of more deep state type of decisions that we have no control over. So a justice that's willing to leave after 11 years.
Well, hands down, I'm in agreement with these guys. I'd support an originalist justice. Here's who I wouldn't support: a 10th justice. We cannot pack the Supreme Court. That's a full stop. I will never support that. I don't care what party's in. I respect the rule of law. I think we need to go on a very ambitious scientific program and clone Clarence Thomas. That man has been absolutely outstanding. I remember when I was a young homeschool kid listening to Rush Limbaugh and the Clarence Thomas hearings. I was impressed with him then. I'm impressed with him now. So yeah, I'm for cloning Clarence Thomas.
Most definitely, we need originalist judges. We also need judges who understand the separation of powers, that there's the judicial, the executive, and the legislative. We do not need justices like Sotomayor, who made up statistics about the number of children in COVID situations in hospitals in order to justify an unconstitutional executive mandate. That is not the role of the Supreme Court. We have to have those who understand that our checks and balances are one of the greatest gifts that has been handed to us on this best governmental system in the history of mankind.
According to a poll released yesterday, only 18% of voters nationwide approve of Joe Biden. Biden's approval rating is underwater in Colorado by at least 10 points. Why? Gino, you get to answer this first.
Well, I'll say I know who the happiest person in America is right now. That is Jimmy Carter, because he can sail off into the sunset knowing that his numbers are no longer the worst. But I think we saw rock bottom this week when you hear a man say if anyone disparages one of our team members, they'll be fired on the spot, and then he drops an SOB on a live mic. I mean, it's all these things combined that are dragging his numbers down. And you know what? Michael Bennett needs to own those numbers as well. We need to make sure we...
I think, you know, the economy is failing. You know, it was going so well for 4 years, and they've undone so much of what was done for those 4 years under President Trump. The border's failing. The policies are failing at the border. Kamala Harris has to own that. That's been a mess. And a lot of people are having second thoughts and voters regret. He's just failed to deliver a lot of this stuff to the liberal side of his party, and he can't get stuff through the legislation. He can't even get 50 Democrats to vote. So a failure of leadership as well.
Joe Biden is an abject failure across the board. He has been since he first joined the Senate in the early 70s. His own party makes fun of him for his ability to be wrong on every foreign policy issue. I would invite you to look at my website, hanksforcolorado.com. I wrote Joe Biden a letter on the 11th of September for his disgraceful exit from Afghanistan. He set our foreign policy and our international reputation back decades. We may have wars in Ukraine and China.
So I think the real question here is, who are the 18% that approve? Wow. I mean, this guy is the best at one thing, which is failing at the biggest level. We're looking at 10% unemployment, military failures like we've never seen before. This is utter chaos and disaster. We see parents being told that they're criminals. We see illegal border crossings. I mean, guys, we've never seen anything like this. But you know what the great thing is? 2022 is coming, and I think Republicans are going to have a heck of a year.
This is really our year. When you have a president that weaponizes the DOJ and calls parents terrorists and the Taliban partners, you know everything is upside down. When we're witnessing a 40-year high of inflation, this is our opportunity to invite our fellow citizens. Our job, and my job as a senator, is to stop the steamrolling that is going over our rights in 22, and then when we retake the presidency in 24, then we start the real work. This is our time.
The reason why Biden's at 18% approval right now is because his policies don't work. Americans are struggling right now. Right now, as we talk, there's people sitting at their kitchen tables wondering how they're going to pay their mortgage, how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to pay their electric bills. The Penn Wharton Business School came out and said in 2021, the average family is going to be spending $3,500 more than they did last year for the exact same goods and service. That's called struggle. That's called trouble, and that's the reason why people are not happy with what's going on right now. We need to carry the average American who's struggling right now. Thank you.
All right, Greg, this one will be to you first. And there's been a lot of talk tonight about deficit spending, about balanced budgets, et cetera. I want to throw a hypothetical out there. So if you were a senator and there was a deal to cut the deficit by $5 for every $1 of tax increases in the bill, would you support that deal?
I don't think that's enough. actually. Yeah, I would. We have to cut the deficit. It's going to sink us, and it's going to, our children are going to suffer for it. We're living high on the hog on all this government spending, and most of it is not the kind of spending that's going to yield a lot of fruit in the future. And so absolutely, I would say, whatever we can do to cut the budget deficit, if we can put that into law, we need to do that.
Give me the numbers one more time.
For the deficit being lowered for $1 of tax
Okay.
increases.
The problem with that premise is, and I mentioned it before, the government lies. So we know that they're going to not cut the budget. So why raise our taxes on it? We're going to end up having to grow our economy out of this rather than raising taxes. They'll divert it. That's what they do time and time again. So no, let's stop on the taxes. Let's go the other way with taxes and unleash this economy. We can get it into $25, $30 trillion annually and beat the
No, I would not take that deal because the deficit is the growth of the debt. It's not the debt itself. We're not even reducing the debt. We're saying we're going to cut the increase of spending. That makes no sense to me. Art Laffer, who was a great economist of the 1980s, developed the Laffer curve, which actually showed when you reduce taxes, you will increase revenues. So the right way to do it is to reduce the deficit and reduce the taxes, make the government smaller. That's how we get out of this pickle that we're in right now.
I agree completely because our problem is not an undertaxing problem, it's an overspending problem. All we have to do is cut back the regulation that is crippling those who innovate in our industries, who can actually provide jobs. It's time for by the way, for the government to realize that they don't create jobs. Business owners do. So we need to get off the backs of people. The income will increase, and that will solve our deficit problem. We don't need to take any more of anyone's money. That has to stop.
I would not be up for raising taxes because taxes does kill the economy. As Eli said, according to the Laffer curve, it does show when you raise taxes, it does hurt the economic growth. And as Deborah said, the United States of America doesn't have a revenue problem. We got a spending problem. And what we need to freeze the budget so that it doesn't spend any more. Because I guarantee you, if we stop spending more than what we have, we will be in better shape. Such as the Rand Paul program, the 3 cents, where we freeze for the next 5 years and reduce how much we spend by 3 cents per dollar, we will get back to a balanced budget. Thank you.
Absolutely not. I'm all for simpler taxes and lower taxes. I'm not unlike Donald Trump, where I'm a businessman. I'm the guy that's out there paying those taxes just like you are and trying to make ends meet. And we know that when we save money in taxes and our tax returns are simpler, we reinvest that money back in our businesses. We hire more people and we grow our GDP, and that's how we dig our way out of this deficit that we're in and stop the silly spending. We can't pay people to sit at home. We all know that. When we take control and we lose the single party rule, we'll stop that.
As your final question before closing statements, people like to get to know their candidates. What hobbies are you interested in outside of politics? What do you do for fun? Ron Hanks.
I like heavy equipment, to be honest with you. I like my backhoe, I like my bulldozer. There's a meditative trance I can get into when I'm working the ground, when I am doing fire mitigation. That's where I'm most at home. I guess maybe it's not unheard of. Reagan used to like to cut brush on his ranch back there, so maybe taking a little bit of a lead from him. Thank you.
Probably unsurprisingly, I like doing sports. And one of my favorite sports, and my dad's here tonight, he and I go skiing together. He's an expert skier. He puts everybody, including me, to shame. But I love skiing. I love riding my mountain bike. I love playing golf. I love doing everything outdoors. This is my love of nature and love of Colorado. So if it's outdoors and it's in Colorado, you can probably find me doing it.
Well, I'm a mom, a business owner. I run a nonprofit. Now I'm running for the Senate. I think I've forgotten what a hobby actually is. But I would say my favorite thing is to spend time with my family. My husband, who's an 82nd Airborne veteran, our children. We love this state. We love skiing, hiking, anytime we can get out. We are blessed to live in the most beautiful state that God has ever created. Every chance I get outside. And I so enjoy seeing every corner of this state during this process.
So I'm actually a football fanatic. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but I played football all through high school, and I actually played football in college. And this may be hard for you to believe, or maybe it's easy to believe because I'm such a huge hulking man. I actually, I actually got scouted by. There you go. Yeah, I got scouted by the Minnesota Vikings, Arizona Cardinals, and so football has always been dear and close to my heart. And you know, it's something that's I'm a big Bronco fan. So let's go Broncos.
Well, Michelle and I raised 4 amazing children, and we spent a lot of our time on soccer fields. I coach over 50 soccer teams, so my hobby used to be coaching. But now that we're empty nesters, we get to get out and do a lot more of the things, other things that we like to do. We actually, when we turned 50, we got each other mountain bikes. We've taken up that sport. We love to ski and be in the outdoors. But if I really want to relieve stress, I love to cook. I'm an artisan bread maker, and I enjoy spending my time doing that and just decompressing.
You might not know that by looking at me, but I used to be a gearhead. I used to like to work on cars, and I haven't done that for a while, but someday I'm going to buy an old muscle car and fix it up. The thing I did most recently, I love camping, and so I bought an old tent trailer from a farmer outside of Boulder, and I fixed it up last summer, and we went on a 6 national park camping trip with that old trailer, and it was awesome. So hope to do that again this summer. Maybe.
All right, thank you, candidates. It's now time for closing statements. So you'll each have 1 minute, and we'll go in reverse order from opening statements. So we'll start over here with Peter.
Don't start my time yet. I just want to say thank you to the State Party for holding this forum. These forums are extremely important because it gives you, the voter, the chance to see which candidate resonates with every voter in the state of Colorado. Because this is more than about just having Republican talking points or identity politics. Because what's going on in our country right now, this isn't a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's an American thing. We are all going through the exact same problems right now. Right now, we have inflation at a 40-year high. Cost of living is through the roof. Energy cost is out of control. We need to make sure that we take care of you because our political environment is more divisive than ever when you can't even talk to your neighbors. And we have real problems right now. We need real solutions. And you know what? As a person who understands the problems we're going through, as your next U.S. Senator, I want you to know that you are my priority. I want you to know that what ails you at night when you go to sleep at night is what I'm going to be addressing so that when you wake up in the morning, your life will be better. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm Gino Campana, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate to fight for the American dream. I'm passionate about it. You know, my father laid the foundation for our family to be able to live the American dream, and I want to ensure that the American dream is still alive for my children and your children. And you're all able to write. They're all able to write their own story of what the American dream is. And you know, I'll represent you as a U.S. Senator with capabilities and knowledge and hard work and everything else. But what I really want you to believe in is that I'll go there and represent what America is all about, what the American dream is all about. And I will reinforce that with the senators that are there every single day. When they bring up a piece of legislation that is in contrast with the lens of the American dream, I'll bring that to their attention. And I want to inspire them, and I want to inspire the children of our country to continue on long after I'm gone and no longer a senator. We're obligated to that. I'm obligated to the American soldier that brought my father here from Italy. And I'm obligated to your children and my children to do that. And I will.
Objection. Do you want me to go or do you want Deborah to go? Okay. Okay. Well, I'm Greg Moore, and I'd love to represent you in Washington. This is the best state in the best country in the world. If you send me, I promise you I will bring my faith commitment as a Christian conservative. I'm pro-life, pro-school choice, pro-religious freedom, pro-family. I'll bring 30 years of experience as an educator to fight critical race theory, to keep the Department of Education in its place and give parents more freedom. I'll bring my national security experience to keep us safe, to keep us prosperous, to keep us strong. I will bring integrity and honesty to my work. I will bring my love of country and Constitution together with a commitment to fight to defend both. And I will work to make Colorado and the United States as great as they can be. Our best days are still ahead of us, I believe that. Check out my website, moreforcolorado.com. Thank you for your time tonight.
The Joe Biden era has been a disgrace and a failure, and it is a national security threat. So I am running for U.S. Senate to resecure our energy independence in this country. We must resecure our borders. We must reestablish manufacturing in this country again. Our supply chain is at risk. Traditional education must be restored. I put in 32 years in the military. This choice, this decision I made to run for U.S. Senate is not a career move. It is, to me, an extension of military service. We are under grave national security threat, and I believe we must turn it around in this election cycle. And by the way, we have to fight for the authenticity of the last election and make sure that election integrity is ensured for all future elections. I'm Ron Hanks, hanksforcolorado.com, and thank you for coming out tonight.
There we go. Next Friday, a newly minted American citizen named Kaylee Humphreys will walk into the opening ceremonies of the Beijing Olympics. A few months ago, Kaylee called me up because she was having problems with her paperwork. She was immigrating legally, and she asked for my help getting some of that processed. And I said, Kaylee, I got to ask you a question. She's expected to win a gold medal. I said, are you going to stand for our flag? And she said, Eli, if I have the privilege of representing the United States of America, I will be belting out the national anthem with tears in my eyes. Folks, that's what it means to be an American. We are the greatest country in the history of the world. I am so proud to have been born into this amazing country. And the reason I'm running for Senate is because I believe our best days are ahead of us and not behind us. I want to fight to preserve the liberties that we have for your kids, your grandkids, and my own 7-year-old son. I'm Eli Bremer. Visit us at eliforsenate.com, and we'd love to have you join our team. Thank you.
America is the revolutionary idea that has happened once in history, that every single individual has intrinsic wealth. That's why we're among the most blessed people to ever walk this planet. But here's a question I think most of us are asking right now. Will our children and our grandchildren also enjoy that same blessing of liberty? That's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate, to ensure that they do. As your senator, I vow that I will do everything in my ability to push back against the overreach of government into every area of our lives, from our personal health care decisions to how we raise our children. I'll work tirelessly to stop the out-of-control spending that is fueling inflation and crippling families. If we want to win, we have to do something different. We need a candidate with a proven track record of standing for what is right that can win in November. This is our day, and I am that candidate. I ask that you join me for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. Go to deborahflora.com. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
All right, thank you, everyone. That wraps up our Colorado Republican U.S. Senate debate. Please cast your ballots before you leave in the box where you checked in. But first, join me in giving a hand to these excellent candidates who are all much better than Michael Bennett.